we often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bond. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us? What could be more alien to the universal aspirations of our peoples than war and the threat of war?
Wait a minute, are you knocking this country? Are you saying something against America?
Against it? I should be positively astounded to hear of anything that we said for it. Why, the whole bloody place is the most unspeakable matriarchy in the whole history of civilization. Look at yourself and the way your wife and her strumpet of a mother push you through the hoop.
Things to cover here, but I look to Dr. Sherwood. Are we moving?
Joe Biden, wake up. Joe Biden, wake up. 9/11.
One of the things that I strongly believe is
Joe Biden, wake up.
I should probably go home. I'm tired.
Joe Biden, wake up.
Joe. I'm tired.
Joe Biden.
What's happening?
Joe Biden, 9/11.
What's happening?
Joe. Hello, Mr. President. Wake up.
You should have to pay nearly $6,400 more than you would today.
Joe Biden, wake up. 9/11. Hope you guys had a great anniversary yesterday. Most people don't like that joke. I don't know why. It always falls flat. 3 times without anything hitting him. That joke always falls flat. Anywho, Elihu. So, let's see, media source there. Okay, we're ready here. This is, can't make this up, part 9 through 11 today. I swear, as Elohim's my witness, I seriously don't try to do this. But it is September 12th. And September 10th, I did parts, what was it, 5 through 8, right? No. Yeah, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And so today, the day after, because I had things to do yesterday, now it's parts 9, 10, and 11. IX, X, and XI. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. If you put them all together, it'd be IXXXI. Okay, so anyway, let me just begin. I think I'm gonna begin by reading. Should I begin it by reading? Actually, I want to start it right off the bat. With something called the Serpents of Orthodoxy. Let's see here. Where is there it is, window capture. Let's move my thing here. Ooh. All right, let's just go over this. I want to go over this section and then I'll start reading. Orthodox arts, they call it. There's the cross, the iron cross, which is supposed to be a sundog. It's sun worship. It has nothing to do with Messiah because Messiah was crucified on a tree, on a post. They call it a tree and a stake, not a cross. It's singular. It's a mono. There is one post. There was one nail, not three. There was one Messiah, not three. You understand? There's one Elohim. There's one Mashiach overall. There's one Ruach HaKodesh to comfort all. One. Oneness. Shema Yisrael. Yehovah Elohim. Yehovah Echad. It means he is one, but it also means because. He literally is the because. He's the is. Messiah is the do. So, let my speech fall as the rain. Let it distill as the dew. Don't think that's a coincidence, but some people might think it is. The Serpents of Orthodoxy. I don't even want to go over that name. April 18th, of course, 6 + 6 + 6, and then 2013. Come on, bro. Ooh, look at this. I've seen this phenotype. Oh, look at that. It's two serpents going for the sun dog. Remember the dog star? It's actually not the dog star. It's the fisher star. It's the fisherman star. It's the star that probably represents Messiah. I don't think it is Messiah. I don't think it is Messiah up there. I think it's a star that actually is supposed to represent him. It may even be what they consider the angel of Yehovah when it says he went up from Gilgal and settled down in Bochim. That's literally the how the heavens go. It comes from east to west. So that's what the angel. You'll see this. The Magi followed a light from the east to the west. So Bishop Vladimir Sokolovsky. Shaka. Remember I said Shaka Khan? The black magic practitioner from that Road to El Dorado movie was called Sekel Khan. Literally Zekel Khan. Shaka Khan. Shakira. It's Sheshak. It's the Shak of Sheshak. So his name could literally be something like Sheshak. Just Babylonized. Just babbled. Babbled differently. One of the most surprising images faced considering Orthodox liturgical symbolism is the bishop's staff supporting two snakes. Yeah. Especially in a Protestant North American context. This image seems to hark back to ancient Chthonian Chthonian cults more a wizard's magic staff than anything Christian. But I'm going to skip all their nonsense. I just want to show you the serpents, actually. So this is a serpent seemingly getting the tail of a lion. And they'll tell you, they'll probably tell you, oh, it's getting the lion of this country. It's biting tyranny. No, it's biting the tail of the Lion of Judah. I'm not going to take this. It's black and red. Blood and soil. Even the picture. There's no end to their gold. There's no end to their armies. There's no end to their blasphemies. It says in the Old Testament, it predicts these people. Because it is that, what do they call it? I need to write that down and look that up. I've probably seen it somewhere. This is probably where you get Cthulhu from, it looks like. How am I not spelling it? C-H-T-H is the cop and the taw. The cop of the mark. Of the skin. Of the testimony of man. Instead of writing cult, I wrote the word cut with 2 T's. Something, I don't know. Anyway, look at this. It literally looks like the aliens from the Alien movie. This might be where he got his inspiration. There's also Mayan stuff that looks like that. and they parade around the crucified Messiah because they're mocking him. If your family member was treated this way, you wouldn't mark your triumph with images of your family member going through this. It's demonic. I don't care what you say. I don't care what your priest says. Your what is it, the Greek Orthodox or one of the, it's either the Greek Orthodox or Orthodox in general. Their high priest is like a 33rd degree Freemason. But then they'll just tell you, oh, it's like George Washington made a good branch of Freemasonry. It's like, no, Freemasonry is compartmentalized. Anybody could start a Freemasonry lodge with their own rules. Give or take. You gotta look it up. Tau-shaped serpent. They even say it's shaped like a taw. It's the mark of... Remember, the cross is supposed to be where all the sins were put, metaphorically. So these people parading around this cross is because they're holding on to their sin. They won't let it out from under their tongue. Yeah, they even tell you it's the brazen serpent, but they're like, oh no, we're doing it because... No, it's literally dragons. Some of these things are literally dragons. So I just want to show you here, like, what is this? Who makes this stuff? Who would spend the time carving this? It's disturbing. Let's see here. Come on. More serpents. I want to see. Yeah, these people really like drawing demons. So this is Asclepius. He's a fraudulent form of Moses, just like Hercules is a fraudulent form of Samson or Shimshon. A second, please. Okay. So Hermes is David, because Hermes is Mercury. Hermes is basically stole the cattle of, I think, Ares by playing beautiful music. Yeah, it's David. All these characters that they have, Hercules, Asclepius, Hermes, were already in Israel like 500 to 700 years before Greece was even established as a kingdom. They got their alphabet from the Hebrews. They'll tell you it's Phoenicians because that's Pharaoh's lies. The Phoenicians probably actually are the ones that caused the corruption of their language, because you can't corrupt the Hebrew, but if you have a daughter language from it, you can corrupt that language. And gee, why do they write all the Bibles in like English? And most Bibles are in English, most Bibles are taught in English. That's by design, because Hebrew is multi-dimensional, so they only give you one dimension. Even scripture in a death language is powerful. So imagine all 5 dimensions and the infinite-dimensional. That's what I've been doing on my streams. I've been using Hebrew the way you're supposed to, and I've been unlocking everything through it. So these people worship serpents. Then they'll tell you there's no truth in nature, even though Elohim, Yehovah Sabaoth created everything, and Yehovah Sabaoth is truth. So the fact that anything he creates will reflect truth. Anybody who says that his creation, you can't find truth from it, is a blasphemer who is blind. Horribly blind. His heart is utterly sick. Desperately sick. If you can't see truth in creation, you can't see God. You can't see Elohim. It says that in Romans. Paul says that. So literally, if you say you can't see truth in creation, you're saying that God doesn't warn any of these people, and they're evil because God never warned them. When it says in scripture that through creation, God shows these people everything, and they still rebel and worship the created, like serpents, and go to liturgy. So anyway, we're gonna look at the Principality of Moscow next, but I want to read some stuff. Pull the Roll the scroll up here. Howdy, howdy. Hi, I'm Woody. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Anyway, so I want to give this really quick because I can't speak a lot about this because the TOS thing, I don't know how they actually do things. So certain things I just have to be careful of. Look up lorazepam. I'm not sure exactly how to spell it. So I'm not going to tell you how I spelt it. So lorazepam. That in Hebrew is lamed. That's the scholar or the lamentation or moisture and renewal. Raza is to divide. And pan is literally the mouth of mankind. So the scholar who divides the mouth of mankind is what lorazepam means. Go look it up what it was used for, because I don't know if I can speak about it on here to much detail. But go look it up. It's fitting that I mention lorazepam while speaking of this man and reading Mein Kampf. Who knows? Nazis might have invented it. Or the precursor to it. So anyway, I mean, they allegedly invented amphetamines and meth, so you can do with that what you will. So, I'll just continue here on page 76. 7 and 6 is 13, remember that? So, the last thing he said was, it's talking about somebody. I'll just read from where I left off. So, if you need to be reminded every time I start another stream from the beginning on a different day, I reiterate that this is a stream exposing Adolf Hitler as what I call benevolent psychopath. Gives you a lot of benevolence until you receive him, and then comes the full psychopath. He seems to be a high up magician, and that's why he shaves the sides of his face and his beard down here and only leaves a little bit of mustache right here, and then shaves the sides of his head because there's a magician's bloodline. And if you have these features, it doesn't make you bad. It just means far back you could have had the bloodline. It doesn't matter. I mean, if you look at my bloodline and then see what I'm doing, it should give you hope that it doesn't matter what bloodline you come from. You need to know where these features come from. It can help you. It can help you spot frauds, especially if they have the features and they're supporting witchcraft ideologies. Especially if they do a lot of drugs, like heavy drugs, or they're alcoholics or something. So they get their hair turns white on the sides of their face first, and the top will stay black. It's usually black hair. Or their beards will be white on the sides and black stripe down the middle. Totally straight stripe too. It's like, how does that actually manifest? And then, or it's black on the sides with a white strip down there. And then there's literally white wizards where it all turns white. But it's complicated. But just remember, it doesn't mean anything for Christians. If you're a Christian, you're a new creation. It's everybody outside is what you actually use this for. But remember, some people creep in unnoticed to spy out our freedoms that we have in Mashiach. And they'll be weeded out if you're aware enough. So this is critiquing Mein Kampf and showing you how Hitler isn't just the main bad man. This archetype is expressed throughout history, and it's being expressed in this country right now. So Mr. Hittite says here, and I call him Mr. Hittite because he's literally Hittite. He has a Hittite nose. And they claim he had like a Jewish grandmother or something. He's like, no, he's a Hittite. He's Hamitic. He's more related to an African than he is a Scandinavian. And then he wants you to talk crap about Africans. It's like, what? Like, as if they're not smart. It's like, then he's having this struggle in his brain. It's like, gee, why are you having so much trouble there, Mr. Hittite? So anyway, he says here, page 76. Once again, these object lessons taken from real life saved me from getting firmly entangled by a theory which at first sight seems so alluring to many people, though that theory itself is a symptom of human decadence. Democracy, as practiced in Western Europe today, is the forerunner of Marxism. Can't argue with that one. In fact, because remember, it's always revelation of method. Trump says true things, and I'm sure even Biden says true things. Just, I don't care to hear him mumble, so I don't pay attention. He says, democracy as practiced in Western Europe today is the forerunner of Marxism. We're about to see that right now in the election. When Trump is elected. You understand? That's the joke. Russia is literally interfering with our elections right now by Putin endorsing Kamala Harris to favor Trump. And they're not gonna tell you that. They're gonna gaslight you, and they're never gonna say that the elections were interfered by Russia. Anyway, he says, in fact, the latter would not be conceivable without the former. Read history. Democracy is the breeding ground in which the bacilli of the Marxist world pest can grow and spread. By the indoctrination of parliamentarianism, democracy produced an abortion of filth and fire. This is an epithet that Faust hurls at Mephistopheles as the latter intrudes on the conversation between Faust and Martha in the garden. Wow, he used a quote from Faust. Do you know the whole Faustian deal? Wow. The creative fire of which, however, seems to have died out. He says he is more than grateful to fate. That's literally ta-ta. It's the mark of the mouth. Well, the mouth makes a mark. It has nothing to do with Elohim. I am more grateful, he says, to fate that this problem came to my notice when I was still in Vienna, for if I had been in Germany at that time, I might easily have found only a superficial solution. If I had been in Berlin when I first discovered what an illogical thing this institution is we call parliament, I might easily have gone to the other extreme and believed, as many people believed, and apparently not without good reason, that the salvation of the people and the empire could be secured only by re-strengthening the principle of imperial authority. Those who had this belief did not discern the tendencies of their time and were blind to the aspirations of the people, in his opinion. Remember, all this is his words when I'm reading them. In Austria, one could not be so easily misled. You see how it's compartmentalization? And all this dude did was travel around Europe. But you know who got restricted after World War One? Or no, it was World War Two, I think. Yeah, I think World War Two is when they... World War One or Two, when they introduced the passports, and they're supposed to just be temporary. You can literally go anywhere in the world before then. You can go anywhere in Europe. If you lived in Germany, you can go anywhere in Europe. You didn't need a passport. But now it's harder because they don't want you to go to the other compartments and hear the other stories. Do you understand? They always put this in movies as animals, where when all the animals talk to each other, the different species, things go better. When they all compartmentalize away from each other and separate, then there's confusion and they start hating each other and evil suspicions arise. Does that remind you of any scripture? It only breeds evil suspicions. So here we go. There it was impossible to fall from one error into another, allegedly. If the parliament were worthless, the Habsburgs were worse, or at least not in the slightest degree better. See, this isn't about the government or what type of government, it's the people who are behind it. They make these other governments, these lesser forms of governments, just to bolster all of their authority and power and wealth. They just compartmentalize more and more as they're seen or attacked. It's literally that's what the Hydra means. The Hydra, where every time you cut off one head, like 3 come out. So you can't just keep fighting it, because then they can just make you the enemy. Then they make you the terrorist. You understand? You can't do that. You have to. It has to be spiritual. He continues, the problem was not solved by rejecting the parliamentary system. Immediately the question arose, what then? To repudiate and abolish the Vienna Parliament would have resulted in leaving all power in the hands of the Habsburgs. For me especially, that idea was impossible. Since this problem was specifically difficult in regard to Austria, I was forced, while still quite young, to go into the essentials of the whole question more thoroughly than I otherwise should have done. He continues, the aspect of the situation that first made the most striking impression on me and gave me grounds for serious reflection was the manifest lack of any individual responsibility in the representative body. Lack of any individual responsibility. Wasn't he just trashing like individual thought before? Anyway, the parliament passes some acts or decree which may have the most devastating consequences, yet nobody bears the responsibility for it. Oh, there's the whipping boy. It's the people. It's the demos. Nobody can be called to account. It's compartmentalization. For surely one cannot say that the cabinet discharges its responsibility when it retires after having brought about a catastrophe. Or can we say that the responsibility is fully discharged when a new coalition is formed or parliament dissolved? Can the principle of responsibility mean anything else than the responsibility of a definite person? Is it at all possible actually to call to account the leaders of a parliamentary government for any kind of action which originated in the wishes of the whole multitude of deputies and was carried out under their orders or sanction? See, he's about to create the Nazi party and do the same thing. It's just pharaohs. It's Hittites and Amalekites working for the pharaohs. Okay, so he said, instead of developing constructive ideas and plans, does the business of a statesman consist in the art of making a whole pack of blockheads understand his projects? Is it his business to entreat and coach them so that they will grant him their generous consent? Is it an indispensable quality in a statesman that he should possess a gift of persuasion commensurate with the statesman's ability to conceive great political measures and carry them through into practice? So remember, I'm pretty well educated. I can read this very well. When you look at the whole scope of the book, it's not written for the average working Joe. The average working Joe might get a headache reading this because he spends too much time slaving away to have an education enough. So that's just what irritates me the most about this book, is he's claiming to be for the everyday man, but his book is written as if it's just a message to all the intellectuals. Does it really prove that the statesman is incompetent if he should fail to win over a majority of votes to support his policy in an assembly which has been called together as the chance result of an electoral system that is not always honestly administered? This is one of the reasons they don't want you reading this book, by the way. And it's hard to find it now. An unabridged edition that doesn't have a bunch of notes by somebody. So a lot of things are exposed in it. And this is a pattern that you can see on internet podcasters. A lot of times, internet podcasters can give you a lot of truth only to lead you into deceptions like, oh, you can't find truth in nature. It's like, well, you're blind. Or they say that they try to just go against Christianity all the time, or the most important aspects of it. They want to keep all the morality of it, because remember, it's not really good and evil aren't moral. I've said that a million times. So this is what he's doing. He'll tell you why all these systems don't work because he wants to become a dictator, right? That's why Trump will tell you certain truths, because he wants to be a dictator. Or probably even greater than that. But anyway, his name means worldwide chief, so. And his coat of arms is Numquam Considere, meaning never acknowledge. Never acknowledge anything, even God. He does not ask for forgiveness. He admits to a Christian college. He never asks God for forgiveness, and he doesn't put him in that picture. You gotta understand, he can't even lie about it because it's judicial. It's a judicial question. He has to answer it. Anyway. So he continues here. Has there ever been a case where such an assembly has worthily appraised a great political concept before that concept was put into practice, and its greatness openly demonstrated throughout its success? In this world, it is not the creative act of the genius always a protest against the inertia of the mass? It says that in scripture. Even Saul was made king in order to restrain the people. And that word restrain is apac. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. So he continues, what shall the statesman do if he does not succeed in coaxing the parliamentary multitude to give its consent to his policy? Shall he purchase that consent for some sort of consideration? Or, when confronted with the obstinate stupidity of his fellow citizens, should he then refrain from pushing forward the measures which he deems to be of vital necessity to the life of the nation? Should he retire or remain in power? In such circumstances, does not a man of character find himself face to face with an insoluble contradiction between his own political insight on the one hand, and on the other his moral integrity? Or better still, his sense of honesty? Where can we draw the line between public duty and personal honor? A lot of interesting points. I mean, this is an educated person expressing himself. It's not going to be 100% lies. That's just, if you got 100% lie, it'd be hard to do 100% lies. That's probably why they even created AI. It's because it's really hard to actually make like 100% lies. 50-50 is probably like the most you could really go without confusing yourself. That's why these people are usually half-truthers. Anyway, he continues, on page 78 now, must not every genuine leader renounce the idea of degrading himself to the level of a political jobber? And on the other hand, does not every jobber feel the itch to play politics, saying that the final responsibility will never rest with him personally, but with an anonymous mass which can never be called to account for their deeds? Must not our parliamentary principle of government by numerical majority necessarily lead to the destruction of the principle of leadership? Does anybody honestly believe that human progress originates in the composite brain of the majority and not in the brain of the individual personality? Or may it see, and then he just asks questions over and over. That kind of clouds really what his answer is. Or may it be presumed that for the future human civilization will be able to dispense with this as a condition of its existence, but may it But may it not be that today, more than ever before, the creative brain of the individual is indispensable? He says I can't understand. But I had a thought right now. I was gonna say. It was important, but I forgot. Maybe it'll come back later. He continues, the parliamentary principle of vesting legislative power in the decision of the majority rejects the authority of the individual and puts a numerical quota of anonymous heads in its place. In doing so, it contradicts the aristocratic principle, which is a fundamental law of nature. But, of course, we must remember that in this decadent era of ours, the aristocratic principle need not be thought of as incorporated in the upper 10,000. That's interesting. Because remember, the true aristocrats came from Shem. I think I went over that one time where Shem's descendants are literally like contemplation and like physics and geography and something else and like trauma surgery, I think. Or not trauma surgery, what was it? I don't know, something like that. And so the aristocrats is literally Ari, Kratos. It's the rule of lions. And who are these lions? Ari, it's Hebrew. Let's see. He continues, the devastating influence of this parliamentary institution might not easily be recognized by those who read the Jewish press, he says. Remember, he's always using that as hobo code. Semitic press. Basically press that views all sides and considers all ideas. It says, unless the reader has learned how to think independently and examine the facts for himself, this institution is primarily responsible for the crowded inrush of mediocre people into the field of politics. Confronted with such a phenomenon, a man who is endowed with real qualities of leadership will be tempted to refrain from taking part in political life, because under these circumstances, the situation does not call for a man who has a capacity for constructive statesmanship, but rather for a man who is capable of bargaining for the favor of the majority. Thus, the situation will appear to small minds and will attract them accordingly. Yeah, because it's like they make you think that you vote in these people when a vote is a vox ta, it's a mark of a prayer. And I've said this before, the voting booth is modeled after the Holy of Holies, and it even has a curtain on it like the Holy of Holies. And they make you a high priest who votes for who? They're false messiahs. Is it raining? My windows are closed. I don't think I have anything outside that shouldn't get wet. Okay. Just checking. So, he continues, the narrower the mental outlook and the more meager the amount of knowledge in a political jobber, the more accurate is his estimate of his own political stock, and thus he will be all the more inclined to appreciate a system which does not demand creative genius or even high-class talent, but rather that crafty kind of sagacity. That's interesting, Bob Saget. That crafty kind of sagacity which makes an efficient town clerk. Indeed, he values this kind of small craftiness more than the political genius of a Pericles. I'm going to have to go look that up. Sounds familiar. Such a mediocrity does not even have to worry about responsibility for what he does. From the beginning, he knows that whatever be the results of his statesmanship, his end is already prescribed by the stars. Something's being revealed here. You notice, like, you know he's from a magician's bloodline. That's funny. He said that it's the goddess of this, the goddess of that. Oh, it's fate. Oh, it's what is it? Providence. It's already prescribed in the stars. It's like he can shave whatever he wants on his face, but he can't shave his words apparently. He continues, he will one day have to clear out and make room for another who is of similar mental caliber. For it is another sign of our decadent times that the number of eminent statesmen grows according as the caliber of individual personality dwindles. That caliber will become smaller and smaller the more the individual politician has to depend upon parliamentary majorities. A man of real political ability will refuse to be the beadle, Beadle, for a bevy of footling cacklers, literally like Kamala Harris, and they, in their turn, being the representatives of the majority, which means the thunder-headed multitude hate nothing so much as a superior brain. Yeah, because when somebody actually takes the time to research things, to research language, to research history, to research scripture, the reaction of the majority is what it says in scripture. Who made you a prince and judge over us? Nobody, I'm just saying. Why are you striking your brother? You see that? Why are you striking your brother, your kinsman? It's like, who made you the judge? It's like, yeah, I struck the Egyptian because he was beating one of you guys to death. And then I come out and I have to see two of my own people fighting with each other. And then when I asked them, hey, why are you guys fighting each other? Then they have to threaten me, loftily threaten me. Give out their own brother who literally saved one of their brothers from being beaten to death. It just shows you the sick, degenerate mind of these people in scripture. So Mr. Hittite continues, for footling, 43rd minute mark here, for footling deputies, and this is page 79, for footling deputies it is always quite a consolation to be led by a person whose intellectual stature is on the level with their own. Thus each one may have the opportunity to shine in debate among such compeers, and above all, each one feels that he may one day rise to the top. This is Freemasonry. If Peter be boss today, then why not Paul tomorrow? Oh, the red and the blue. Wow. Anyway, he continues, this new invention of democracy is very closely connected with a peculiar phenomenon which has recently spread to a pernicious extent, namely the cowardice of a large section of our so-called political leaders. Whenever important decisions have to be made, they always find themselves fortunate in being able to hide behind the backs of what they call the majority. The demos, the people. It's literally where you get demons from. It's where you get I am legion for we are many. Is literally I am demos. I am democracy for we are many. But anyway. And they don't like the superior mind saying, I rebuke you, Shemiramoth. So what is it? That's why it's probably fitting that the last three parts here end the Romeo and Juliet, because the next part is Machiavellian Paradise Lost, because he's going to describe all these things. Philosophers have done this for thousands of years. They make a book, they label in it some mythical society that works perfectly in their mind. And that's just all he's doing. He's just promising you castles and airships and going to Antarctica, basically. So, he continues, in observing one of these political manipulators, one notices how he wheedles the majority in order to get their sanction for whatever action he takes. He has to have accomplices in order to be able to shift responsibility to other shoulders whenever it is opportune to do so. And that's, remember, Rameses is compartmentalization. Evil compartmentalization. Because you're setting them up like animals. We're not animals. All the different colors and shapes and everything are supposed to commune with each other. We're not supposed to be locked up in our own communities, seeing the different colored or different featured neighboring community as enemies or not us. It's like, it's so dumb. That's why you do that to animals, because we're not animals. That is the main reason why this kind of political activity is abhorrent to men of character and courage, while at the same time it attracts inferior types. For a person who is not willing to accept responsibility for his own actions, but is always seeking to be covered by something. So this is an individual in the false churches too. Keep this in mind. So this is an individual in the false church trying to do the same thing. Or is it? While at the same time, the inferior types, for a person who is willing to accept for a person who is not willing to accept responsibility for his own actions, in other words, he doesn't ask God for forgiveness, but is always seeking to be covered by something, must be classed among the knaves and the rascals. If a national leader should come from the lower class of politicians, the evil consequences will soon manifest themselves. Nobody will then have the courage to take a decisive step. They will submit to abuse and defamation rather than pluck up courage to take a definite stand. Yeah. And thus, nobody is left who is willing to risk his position and his career, if needs be, in support of a determined line of policy. So they can even deem in their country who is essential and who isn't right in front of your face, and they just take it. They take the insult. They say, "Thank you, sir. May I have another?" So Mr. Hittite continues, one truth which must always be borne in mind is that the majority can never replace the man. The man here is Messiah. The demos will never replace Mashiach. He continues, the majority represents not only ignorance but also cowardice. No, that's not necessary. They're like sheep. Sheep are gentle. Sheep don't hurt anybody, but they can get confused and they can get scared. That's why they need a shepherd. So he's wrong there. He's actually defaming the people that he's trying to help, allegedly help. He continues, and just as 100 blockheads do not equal one man of wisdom, so 100 poltroons are incapable of any political line of action that requires moral strength and fortitude. The lighter the burden of responsibility on each individual leader, the greater will be the number of those who, in spite of their sorry mediocrity, will feel the call to place their immoral energies at the disposal of the nation. They are so much on the tiptoe of expectation that they find it hard to wait their turn. They stand in a long queue, painfully and sadly counting the number of those ahead of them and calculating the hours until they may eventually come forward. That's called seniority in the Union. It's called seniority in the Union. It's hilarious. But anyway, he continues, they watch every change that takes place in the personnel of the office towards which their hopes are directed, and they are grateful for every scandal which removes one of the aspirants waiting ahead of them in the queue. I think Queue is Q, right? I think it's just pronounced Q, which is interesting. But yeah, so in a union, how can you actually have brotherhood if you're just waiting for each one to fail so you can get up in seniority and make more money and work less but make the same money, or work less and make more money? The whole union system is corrupt. So, anyway, he continues, if somebody sticks too long to his office stool, they consider this as almost a breach of a sacred understanding based on their mutual solidarity. They grow furious and give no peace until that inconsiderate person is finally driven out and forced to hand over his cozy berth for public disposal. After that, he will have little chance of getting another opportunity. Usually those placemen who have been forced to give up their posts push themselves again into the waiting queue unless they are hounded away by the protestations of the other aspirants. Remember, Protestant just means a protester. So if someone calls me a Protestant, I'm like, no, I don't protest. I just speak truth. If you think speaking truth is protesting and you want to call me Protestant, I don't care. This is dumb little names that children call each other names. That's the bottom line here. Children call each other names. You're Protestant. You're Catholic. You're a pre-preterist trib-nabled. It's like, it's dumb. So anyway. Okay, he continues, the result of all this is that in such a state, the succession of sudden changes in public positions and public offices has a very disquieting effect in general, which may easily lead to disaster when an adverse crisis arises. A pandemos. It is not only the ignorant and the incompetent person who may fall victim to those parliamentary conditions, for the genuine leader may be affected just as much as the others, if not more so, whenever fate has chanced to place a capable man in the position of a leader. Let the superior quality of such a leader be once recognized, and the result will be that a joint front will be organized against him, particularly if that leader, though not coming from their ranks, should fall into the habit of intermingling with these illustrious nincompoops on their own level. It's such a boomer thing to say, nincompoops. They want to have only their own company. Come on. The Trump putting his name on everything. Come on. They want to have their own company and will quickly take a hostile attitude towards any man who might show himself obviously above and beyond them when he mingles in their ranks. Their instinct, which is so blind in other directions, is very sharp in this particular. Wait a minute, I noticed something up here. Let's see here. I can't remember. He continues, the inevitable result is that the intellectual level of the ruling class sinks steadily. One can easily forecast how much the nation and state are bound to suffer from such a condition of affairs, provided one does not belong to that same class of leaders. So sometimes I do the quotes because that's in the book, the quotations. I realized pandemos, whenever they release something like that throughout history, they're trying to make the whole world democratic. Think about what happened between 2019 and 2023 and tell me that isn't an attempt to make the entire world a democracy with one leader. Gee, I wonder who that one leader is. I wonder if he's a magus. Magog. Gog and Magog. You can understand. He continues, the parliamentary regime in the old Austria was the very archetype of the institution as I have described it. Though the though the Austrian prime minister was appointed by the king emperor, which I'll show you, I think that guy next. I'll show you that one before the Principality of Moscow. The Franz Joseph, so we can go over that. So though the Austrian prime minister was appointed by the king emperor, this act of appointment merely gave practical effect to the will of the parliament. The huckstering and bargaining that went on in regard to every ministerial position showed all the typical marks of Western democracy. See how he tries to even like separate there? I guess there's two types because they have in levels, and I do think it's true that democracy is the stepping stone of Marxism, but whatever. It's all anarcho-capitalism anyway, so people don't get. It's anarcho-capitalism. It's capitalism by force. Oh. The results that followed were in keeping with the principles applied. They want to complain that our government isn't going along with like a constitution, all this and that, and then they want to promote anarcho-capitalism as a solution. It's like, dude, you're in anarcho-capitalism right now. They don't go by their own laws. They use force to enforce their mandates. It's like, come on. So Mr. Hittite continues, the intervals between the replacement of one person by another gradually became shorter, finally ending up in a wild relay chase. When I wake up in the morning each and every day, all day long I just hear my daddy say. He continues, with each change the quality of the statesman in question deteriorated until finally only the petty type of political huckster valued according to the adroitness with which they pieced together one coalition after another. In other words, their craftiness in manipulating the pettiest political transactions, which is the only kind of practical activity suited to the aptitudes of these representatives. Imagine reading this in German. And Lord, they want to make fun of English. It's like, hey, can make fun of English, but imagine reading this thing in German. That'd be a feat. But that ends this section. There's only 3 sections this time. Remember, I do 4 sections at a time, the first 2 sections. Then the last section is 3, so that it comes out to 11, because that's what this whole book is about. It's about destruction. It's about the vectors of destruction. It's about a man who spellcasts with high class psychology. So I hear something out there. I don't know if it's a boat or a helicopter. Oh, I saw like, I don't know if I said it. I saw 4 black helicopters. They were the big cargo ones with the 2 propellers, the long big ones with the 2 propellers on it. They were so black. They had some weird thing around it. I don't know if it was some graphite technology, but it was weird. When you look at it, it looks like there's a black mist. It looks literally like black ash is surrounding it. Very I don't know how to describe it. It's that level of, it might just be the level of black they got this paint that makes your eyes do that when you look at it. It's really weird. It's really, it just feels demonic. And they had these giant long, like Pinocchio noses coming out of them. These giant black rods that I'm pretty sure were some kind of radar thing. And there was 4 of them for each corner of the earth. And these things were going by, and I'm just like, I wasn't afraid, of course. They were just, I had never quite seen something like that. And I'm like, okay, if you guys are going to come back, remember what happened last time. Remember what happened last time. You want helicopters flying over this house? Remember what happened last time. I'm serious. Literal helicopters constantly flying over my house, beaming these microwave beams. You can see them. You know how the microwave, you turn on a microwave, you look at the light and everything. They're broad daylight, flashing these lights down. It's like, okay. I'm still here though, ain't I? It's so cute. Little microwave lights. How cute is that? They would literally circle my house for like 2 hours at midnight. to the point where I'm like, there can't be a human in that helicopter. He'd be going dizzy or something. He'd be going sick. Like, this has to be like a remote piloted thing. Like, I'm not even kidding. A perfect small circle too. This was back in California. And then there was a guy who, I won't go over it again. Look at the final cut. I think it is either the final cut or the old broken crow. Is where I talk about that. So hey, if they want to start selling helicopters again, I ain't afraid. I remember what happened last time, and hopefully they do also. Okay, I gotta start music. It's getting confused for a second here.
Excuse me, sir. What is your name? And what do you do?